Well, hello everyone on this beautiful Thursday evening. I don't know if it's beautiful where you are. It sure is beautiful where I am, but we're together. So beautiful by extension. How is everyone? Thank you for joining me tonight. We're going to talk about the Donroe Doctrine tonight. And I think it's apropos considering all that has been going on in Iran, all that's been going on with Democrats who seem to want to see America fail in this Iran conflict. I think that it's important for us to understand that what Trump is doing in Iran isn't just about Iran. It's about what has been going on for the past at least 30 years in the southern, in our hemisphere, but in our North and South Americas, and how that affects us in America, and how up until Donald Trump, nobody has bothered to check our enemies who are now basically camping out in our backyard. The fact that Democrats believe that Americans are too ignorant to understand what's going on and that they could be spoon-fed bullshit because gas prices have gone up just goes to show you that they haven't changed at all since their party's conception. They are still arrogant. They think they're smarter than everybody else. And they think that they can keep people in check and doing their work through fear, just as they did in the South with the slaves. And I think, and I've always thought, that Americans are so much smarter than people give them credit for, whether they're farmers or whether they're mechanics or whether they're warehouse operators or assembly line workers or automotive industry, or even just work-a-day cashiers and restaurant and waitresses and waiters and bartenders. Americans are much, much smarter than Democrats give them credit for. So we've talked about before that the Iran conflict is just an extension. It's, part two in a multi-series, a multi-progression of putting America first and getting the world back in order. The part one was Maduro. Part two is Cuba kind of falling. Part three is Iran. And by extension, everything Donald Trump is doing is designed to weaken Russia, weaken China, weaken Iran, and make America stronger. So let's just take a look at this. This is a clip. It's about 3 minutes long, but I thought, somebody sent it to me, and I've been talking about this all weekend. Colleen sent it to me last night, and it kind of sums up everything I've been saying, and they say it much better than I do. So here we go.
Trump isn't improvising in Latin America. He's reviving a 200-year-old strategy with 21st century tools. The Donroe Doctrine, a reboot of the Monroe Doctrine, and a clear rejection of U.S. retreat from the Western Hemisphere. After 2013, Washington pulled back. Others moved in. By 2024, China-Latin America trade exploded past $518 billion, up from just $10 billion in 2000. China gained leverage over ports, lithium, copper, and rare earth supply chains. Russia armed regimes in Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua. Iran expanded its footprint, supplying drones and building alliances with anti-US governments. Then Trump struck. The capture of Nicolas Maduro exposed a harsh reality. Russia couldn't protect its closest ally, even in America's backyard. Despite billions in investment, air defenses, and security ties, Moscow did nothing. Washington moved fast, sanctioned Iran-Venezuela drone networks, offered Argentina a $20 billion lifeline, sidelining China, opened talks with Brazil, rich in rare earths but lacking processing power. The goal is clear: reassert U.S. dominance in Latin America without endless wars. But this isn't just about Venezuela. China is the bigger strategic factor. South America isn't just farmland and oil. It's one of the richest mineral zones on Earth. Lithium, copper, nickel, rare earths. The lithium triangle, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, holds nearly 70% of global lithium reserves. China spent years locking in influence through mining, infrastructure, and long-term supply deals. Trade now exceeds $300 billion across South America. In countries like Chile, Brazil, and Peru, China dominates trade flows. Peru alone is one of the world's top copper producers, critical for electric vehicles, power grids, and advanced weapons. And many of these projects involve Chinese companies. Now zoom in further. Venezuela isn't just about oil. It's about geography. It sits at the northern gateway of South America, near Caribbean shipping lanes and U.S. strategic zones. Control here means influence deeper into the continent. And there's another layer. Iran and Venezuela are bound by shared opposition to the United States. The same pattern exists in Cuba and Nicaragua. Hezbollah, Iran's proxy network, has a presence in the tri-border area between Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay, a hub for smuggling and illicit finance. This region has quietly become a strategic base for operations and fundraising. At the same time, global tensions are shifting alliances. Conflicts like Gaza have strained relations between Israel and parts of South America, including Brazil, Chile, and Colombia. That creates openings. Iran isn't just building alliances with Venezuela and Cuba. It's reaching into larger regional powers like Brazil and Mexico. This is bigger than one country. This is a slow, strategic push to reshape the balance of power and challenge U.S. dominance in its own hemisphere. And now, Washington is responding, not with retreat, but with a doctrine built for a new era of global competition.
Tell me that that wasn't succinct and opened your eyes. Because I know that sometimes I babble and ramble, and the stuff that's in here doesn't always come out here cohesively. That's what's going on. And that's why this isn't about Iran. And when the Democrats stand there and talk about the 25th Amendment and that he's lost his mind and that we're losing the war and that they're taking information from Iran because you can't trust the president of the United States because he lies, the fury inside me, the fury that erupts in me, because this is what's happening. And maybe they don't think people are too stupid to understand it. Maybe they're just too stupid to understand it. I don't know. What do you think? Hello, Francine. Good to have you here. Let's see. Where's my comments? Good evening, Kevin Young. How are you, Karen? Hi, Tom. Good to have you. I hope you're feeling good. Hi, Angela Ricca. I hope you're doing well. Jeff Pardo, good to have you. I'm absolutely amazed. Alberta, Canada, and more provinces want to secede and become part of the United States. Alberta states Canada is too communist. Well, it is too communist. Hello, Professor. Professor, what do you think about that little piece? Hi, Gary. He says it's impressive. Now let's have a look at Africa. Aha. Okay, we'll do that tomorrow. But I want to talk a little bit more about the Monroe Doctrine and the Roosevelt corollary and the Donroe Doctrine, because people need to understand it. Hello, Maisie. Hi, Corey Stevens. Good to have you back. Hi, Lou. How are you? I hope you're doing well. All right, so basically, we all remember the Monroe Doctrine from school. Do you? In case you don't, let me bring it up here. Hold on a second. It's, I just pulled out highlights, right, of what it is. It's the core principles are that after America became independent, we made a declaration that no European countries could further colonize in South America or anywhere in the continent of North America. Why? Because we already had the French in, up in Canada, which would later become Canada. I think we were first, right? We had the Spaniards still in Florida, in the lower part, and out west was who knows, it was still the Native Americans. So they realized that they did not have the military to protect themselves and from influence in from the European nations who, they were established, we're the babies. So they made this, statement that the U.S. declared that the American continents were no longer open to future European colonization or political interference. Any attempt by European powers to establish new colonies or extend their systems in the Western Hemisphere would be viewed as a threat to U.S. peace and security. Non-intervention by Europe. European powers should not interfere with the newly independent nations in Latin America, many of which had been recently broken from Spanish and Portuguese rule. Such interference would be seen as unfriendly dispositions towards the United States. And in return, the United States pledged not to interfere in European wars, internal affairs, or existing European colonies in the Americas. The doctrine was largely drafted by Secretary of State John Quincy Adams. At the time, the U.S. lacked the military power to fully enforce it, but it was backed indirectly by British naval interests. Britain opposed European recolonization for trade reasons, and it signaled America's growing ambition to act as the dominant power in the Western Hemisphere while maintaining isolation from European conflicts. And over time, the doctrine was expanded. The Roosevelt Corollary in 1904 allowed U.S. intervention in Latin America to maintain stability. So that's, we used to learn that stuff in school. I don't think that the kids do learn that stuff anymore. But it made sense because you don't want your enemies camping out in your backyard, right? We don't want China, Russia, and Iran camping out in our backyard. But what wound up happening is that right now, Hezbollah is in our backyard. They're in Mexico. They're in Brazil. We have a big fucking problem, and Trump saw it. And I mean, honestly, if he didn't do something now, we would be speaking Chinese within the next 50 years, I assure you. So what happened with the Roosevelt Corollary? All right, so the Monroe Doctrine was kind of like a warning, right? But the Corollary, and at the time, people said that he was an imperialist. He was acting like an emperor because he said this. What he said was that there would be justification of U.S. intervention. I can't read this. Hold on a second. Let me see where it is. Sorry. Well, basically, he said there would be justification for U.S. intervention if a Latin American country engaged in chronic wrongdoing, failing to pay debts, internal instability, or hammering U.S. interests. It aimed to keep European powers from sending gunboats or troops to collect debts or restore order themselves. It embodied Roosevelt's famous philosophy of speak softly and carry a big stick. Diplomacy first, but overwhelming U.S. power as a backup. And it led to numerous U.S. interventions in the early 20th century, including the Dominican Republic, debt collection and custom control, Cuba, multiple occupations, Nicaragua, Haiti, and others to restore stability. Okay, so that's how Roosevelt handled it. So Trump now built on what the corollary, and he said, not only are we allowed to step in so that nobody else steps in, but we are going to make sure that there is no drug trafficking, no illegal, that our borders are secure and there's no occupation inside American borders by enemies, that we would not allow drug trafficking, human trafficking, things like that. If that happened, we would declare that country was not acting in good faith if they did nothing about it, and then we would go step in and do something about it ourselves. And it was, Roosevelt, speak softly and carry a big stick. Donald Trump, negotiate wherever you can, but if you can't, we're coming in with tanks, bombs, and everything else. And that's why the Department of War is now the Department of War. And that's important. It's important because he needed to make sure that everyone understood that he knew what was going on and we weren't going to take it anymore. The pussification of America was over when Donald Trump got in there. I worked with a Kevin Young at Dana Corporation. Just curious if it's my former supervisor. Kevin, you got to answer him there. Hello, Gloria. Good to have you. No, we let our enemies camp out in our country. Brilliant point, Gary. Actually, brilliant point. We are letting our enemies camp out in our country. And that's why the Donroe Doctrine was invoked. And he doesn't give a shit. I'm glad you do. Remember D.A. Maine. Now you got to give me more than that. I love that you like to test me, but I'm old and tired and I was gardening all day. My back hurts and I'm filthy and miserable. So give me more than that. Oh, Susan's with us. So, the what I don't understand is how these Democrats think that they can boil it down to this elementary kind of conversation of, no kings and, 25th Amendment, and he's crazy. He cursed in a tweet, as I recall, the last couple of ads or cult messages that the Democrats sent out. They were all cursing. They were all up there cursing and carrying on. And Donald Trump sends out a tweet that says, "Open the fucking straight, you." What was it? What did he say? "You crazy bastards." That's what he said. Or "We're coming for you." And all of a sudden, we have to clear the children from the room, before we can read this tweet to you. Who the fuck? What? I mean, these are the news stations that are happily put naked people, having sex on television shows. These are the news stations or the television outlets that have grown women pulling each other's hair out because they drank too much, sleeping with each other's husbands. Are you kidding? No, it's just, I can't. It's not that Kevin Young. Sorry. Roosevelt, the Maine, Cuba, Havana Harbor. Oh. I know that this should come easily to me, but it isn't coming easily to me about what happened with that. Also, I'm going to plead stupid. Somebody talk about it. Back to the other night, condiments. You wouldn't mix sauerkraut and mayonnaise, and you don't favor bananas and rice. Listen. I think that at this point, we have to have intelligent people having intelligent conversations about what is really happening here. And people have to know that, just because they haven't gone to war and we haven't been in a war, really in a long time, that it can happen on our ground, especially after what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did to America, opening up the floodgates and letting all of these migrants in. And, we're going to talk about it again and again and again. Why did all these migrants from Africa and the Middle East, go to Paris and the UK and to Denmark and Sweden? Why? I don't understand why the media is rooting for America to fail. I just can't figure it out. Lou, unfortunately, the media is purchased by China. Most of these companies, either they're Middle Eastern or China, and some of them are British purchased, but they're all Muslim now. So this is a real movement to undermine America. And we've talked about this over and over again. We need to get rid of the pesky Americans and their human rights so that people will be happy with socialism, which ultimately turns into totalitarianism or authoritarianism, where you saw the numbers, $300 billion in trade between China and in Brazil, I think it was, and Nicaragua, and these other not that Brazil's third world, but they're pumping money. They're pumping all this money into these South American countries. But the people are still starving, and the people are still running to America to escape. So what's wrong with that picture? How come so many Muslim people ran to the UK, ran to Denmark, Sweden, Ireland, Germany, Poland, Hungary? How come? Why? All at the same time. Why? What happened? What was the world event that caused them all to leave? There wasn't any. It was time. The plan was put in place. The thing about China is, they are very patient. We are very impatient. They're patient, and our patience is going to hurt us. Remember, we're the child here. We are the youngest country. We're the child that has too much. We're the entitled child who cannot have patience. And that's why right now people are like, 32 days of war and the gas is all the way up and $1. And are you fucking kidding? Your enemy is sleeping next to you. You think it can't happen to you? Explosion and sinking the U.S. Oh, I'm thinking Maine, the state. I'm sorry. God. Oh, help me. I'm sorry. I'm thinking the district attorney of Maine. I'm like, what? Oh my God. Yeah, okay. Got it. Sorry, professor. Sorry. Oh, yes. Remember that. I saw the UN was funding non-government organizations to help illegals get into the United States. That was on the news. Finally, it was on the news. You know who else who was making so much money from that? The Pope and the Catholic Church. Catholic Charities was making a ton of money to come into the United States. So this is the problem. That's why we don't belong in NATO. That's why we must leave NATO. And why the Democrats don't understand that is beyond me. NATO has been sucking our blood. But then again, the Democrats seem to believe their philosophy is take the taxpayer dollars and, help the poor people from other countries. Everybody should be here. No, everybody is not our friend. The Democrats are not our friend. They don't like America. So if the Democrats in America don't like America, why do you think that our enemies would be kind when they come to America? What are we getting at? If they would just stop a minute and process, but they can't. They are so hateful of Donald Trump that they can't process. And we've been getting scammed all along, people. All along, we've been getting scammed. And Donald Trump is here to stop it. And hopefully, we need a miracle in these midterms, because if they take the House and the Senate, he will be impeached. And then they'll jail him. And J.D. Vance will take over, and J.D. Vance will do the right thing. He will absolutely continue where Trump left off. But that's what will happen. And a weakened America is going to let Russia steamroll and accelerate their plan. Russia and China and Iran. It has to be stopped. We have to stop it now. And parking all their BMWs in front of the Somali daycares. Yeah, Corey, it is crazy what is happening. And it is more crazy that it's being uncovered and the news is not reporting on it. and that the Democrats are denying it as if it's not a big problem. I saw a tweet, X post from Gavin Newsom just before I came on air, saying that they're leading the charge in fighting fraud, and something else. And I was thinking to myself, how could you make that statement? How could you possibly make that statement when we know that, we're leading, fighting fraud in the healthcare industry? How is it possible that they can make that statement when it is very, very clear that they are riddled with fraud in their state? Because they do think that people will just believe it because Gavin Newsom said so. Do you think we will become the country we once were, or is it too far gone? We will never be the country we once were. We can't. Half the country hates itself. We have the new generations have been taught to be victims. This has been a psychological game with the groundwork being laid by Russia for a very, very, very long time. This is a mind fuck. The commies have been here. Joe, what's his face? The senator that with the Red Scare, Crowley, Joe Crowley. Yeah, I think it was Joe. He was absolutely right what he's doing. It was crazy, but it is absolutely right. He said, and it was very anti-Semitic, and that was the problem. He was placing it in the laps of the Jewish people because they were in the entertainment industry was mostly Jewish, and the educators were mostly Jewish. And when he said that they're communists and they are trying to steal and indoctrinate our children, and we all, he was run out of town basically, but he was right all along. And that's unfortunate. So we'll never go back there because this has been 80, almost 100 years. It's been since since after World War II that this has all started. So they've been fucking with our minds for the longest time, and we've been letting them. Why? Because we're impatient. We want everything. We're not an old, seasoned, mature country. We are the baby, and we were too powerful too quickly, and we harmed ourselves. In the 1960s, Johnson destroyed Black families, absolutely destroyed Black families. The recovery after slavery, I mean, when you think about it, it was only 140 years that slavery was legal, in this country. 140 years ago, 140 years ago that we ended slavery in this country. But in the 1960s, Johnson decided to create a system of welfare, and he targeted Black families and said, well, you can't have a husband in the house, so if you want the welfare money. And so he ripped apart the family unit. And after they finished ripping apart the Black family unit, they started ripping apart the white family unit, because the more dependent they could make the people on government, the more likely the people would be to accept communism. This was a long game play, and we're in the middle of it now. Our country's not going to ever be what it was. Hopefully it will be better and different, but that's going to come from parents. I mean, parents are the ones that have to handle this. The government can only do so much. They could stop fucking and interfering in our personal lives. And parents are going to have to take up the mantle, and they're going to have to start homeschooling their kids again. They're going to have to start reading and getting rid of the iPhone. See, I mean, that the technology is our biggest problem. And the fact that we have free speech and could do anything is also a problem. And the fact that we can't edit ourselves is also a problem. And the fact that we're fat fucks is also a problem. We've never had to go without in this country. That's a problem. Look up the Cloward-Piven strategy. They bankrupted New York in the late 60s and 70s. It is a communist idea. This is real. Oh, absolutely, Jeff. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now the stupid NATO chief wants to help stop Iran. It's too late now for NATO. We need them now. Listen, I was in shock that what's her name from Italy didn't allow us to use the Sicilian air base. I don't know what's up with her. I mean, I was sure we could count on her. So something is it's bigger than her. I think she's got some people breathing down her neck too. I think Somalia is in for a surprise regardless. I hope you're right. Hold on a second. Oh, what? That jumped quick. To hell with Spain. Remember the Maine and drink the cocktail popular circa 1930s. Right? Well, you're right. Fuck Spain. I mean, listen, Spain, France, they got in the way after when we were going after Saddam Hussein after 9/11. Turkey needed coverage, and Spain and France vetoed it. So we couldn't send them any. NATO wouldn't send them weapons. That whole thing is just. NATO is just fucked up, and besides the point, we've just learned now nobody developed anti-drone technology. While it was happening in our lower hemisphere, in South America, they were developing drones for Iran. But NATO doesn't know how to shoot them down. Thank God Ukraine does. Ukraine's not allowed to be part of NATO because we're afraid of Russia. What the fuck? You see? Do you understand how stupid it is? So we're the babies. They're the old timers, and they think everything is going to just be fine. And quite frankly, Iran, Russia to some extent, and South America, they're like the middle-aged people because they had a foot in democracy, if you will. And now they've moved over to socialism and communism and authoritarian government. But their patience and the fact that they don't give a fuck what their people say allows them to do things much faster than us pesky Americans with all our goddamn rights. And we don't know how to use them. Isn't that a shame? We don't know how to use them. We use them only for instant gratification. And instant gratification, you give a teenager or a child anything they want, and what happens to that kid? Titled little brat. Dems in Michigan are backing a candidate for Michigan Senate who uses a guy that said women who were raped on October 6th deserved it as a spokesperson. Yeah, that's El Sayed, and he was I forget the guy's name. Yeah, they did a rally together yesterday, and El Sayed is part of the Democrat Socialists of America. So if he gets in your state, you're fucked. He's Mamdani's buddy. Johnson was a piece of shit. You're bringing up so many real great points from the 60s and 70s, all stuff I forgot. Well, that's the problem, is we all forgot, right? Because we were lulled into happiness in the 80s and the 90s, right? We forgot. And these kids will never know. 9/11 was a big shakeup and we got our shit together. But now these kids don't even remember 9/11. We have to, it's up to us. We have to be good parents. We're not good parents. If we're not teaching our kids this stuff, we're not good parents. If we're not encouraging our kids to go and sign up for the military, we're not good parents. I mean, look, I'm 63 years old. I'm looking for a way to volunteer my brain power. I'll cook. I'll do whatever so that these, that our military is robust. We need more of that. None of this shit. I mean, I used to ask people, would you die for your country? Would you? At the time that when I was asking people, I would say about 60% said yes, 40% said no. Now, if you go out there and ask people, would you die for your country? In America, you're going to get 20% that say yes and 80% who say no. That's a problem. Watergate, pistachio nuts from Iran, circa 1970s. Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's despicable. Well, we need to do something about it. And I'm going to say it over and over again. Find stuff that makes sense to you. Like it, share it. YouTube has now slowed me all the way down. I used to gain like 5 followers a night over at YouTube. Now I'm stuck. with 170 away from 1,000, which 1,000 is your big point where you can start to be shown all over the place, for over a week now. And even now, I mean, the show, which used to get thousands of views, now we're slowed down to hundreds. The algorithm doesn't like it when you're telling the truth. Did I hear right that Mamdani says average salary is $200,000 for white people and only $20,000 for blacks and Hispanic? Yes, you did hear it right. That is what he believes, and that is what he's going to say to get people crazy. Piker. Oh yeah, that right. That's the guy's. He has a podcast, and he is. I think he's from Turkey. He's Muslim from Turkey, and he said that 9/11 that we deserved it. He's American though, but his his ancestry is Turkish. He said that America deserved 9/11, and that Israel's reaction to October 7th was way out of proportion. That's what he said. It really so sick and unbelievable what's happening, and very sad where we are today. So the question is, what can we do about it? What we can do about it is make sure in the midterms that the Republicans win. That means, digging deep into your pocket, even though gas is so expensive, and making sure that you donate to Republican candidates. It means making phone calls. It means going to the polls. It means being a poll watcher. It means, doing what Andrew does. Andrew, helps at the Board of Election, works at the Board of Elections. It's important. A lot of South American and Caribbean countries are always under a dictatorship, socialist rule or not. Yeah, well, that's what winds up happening, right? Democracy is a code word for dictatorship, because everything starts out as a democracy and ultimately kind of morphs into communism or socialism, which morphs into dictatorship. Because you can't truly be equal. Nobody can truly be equal. That's all bullshit. That's a fantasy that they sell to stupid women and stupid college kids and old people who don't know any better. After Iran, Trump will work on New York City. Yeah. After Iran, Trump's got a lot to work on. Also anti-American, 100%. What's going on with the CARE Act? Haven't been keeping up. The CARE Act. The CARE Act. You mean Obamacare? I'm confused. I know right now we are having, a hard time in Congress. Congress needs to pass some bills. Congress, they're talking about amnesty, some sort of amnesty. I saw Mike Lawler and the Florida girl, I forget her name. I'm sorry, I'm so tired. Talking about it, but basically, it is an immigration policy to vet the people that were let in by Biden, because right now they're fast tracked to become Americans. If you got like the golden card, whoever Biden let in are on track to become Americans without vetting. And Lawler and a couple of others are talking about an immigration bill. I'd like to read it. I haven't read it. I only heard about it yesterday. I want to talk about it. They need to pass the Save America Act. Voting without mail-in ballots. Okay, yeah, the Save America Act. So it's not without mail-in ballots. It's, as a matter of fact, Santillan, who was on last night, and you weren't there here, Lou, in Hawaii, he had they sent out a mailer saying that they weren't going to use polling places. Everybody would get mailed a ballot. And Santillan and his buddies, raised hay in I think they're in Maui, and now 3 polling sites are opening. But I think Colorado is one that mails out all the ballots. I think California still does. The Save America Act would stop automatic mail-in ballots, and only for federal elections, by the way. You can't do it for state elections and local elections. That's up to the states themselves. But for federal elections, the federal government can make some guidelines. but it's not doing anything. I mean, there was Trump threw on a whole bunch of shit. And so we lost Fetterman, and they're talking about needing 60 votes, which we shouldn't need 60 votes. And Thune is a fucking dick. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's Save America Act. That's what it's called. Scary times. Half the country is preoccupied with what false narratives. You're right. That's why we need to make sure that we tell Democrats that they're the ones in the cult and prove it. And we have to share things like this, like that little clip, that 3-minute clip, needs to be shared everywhere. There are so many good, smart people who know how to play this AI game, who can get these clips out and speak so much better than I do in a half hour. They can say it in 3 minutes, and it takes me a half an hour, and still I'm not clear. Actually, 40 minutes tonight. Amnesty for illegals, we can't let that happen. And they're talking about it because they're on track to become citizens. So now what do? We need to have a comprehensive bill. And we need to, I think that we should allow nobody else to immigrate here from anywhere for the next 10 years. We should say no. 10 years, we can't have to process who's here already. Got to separate the wheat from the chaff. And we've got to, get the bad ones out. And if the good ones, have that golden ticket from Biden, then we've got to vet them. And no, you cannot. We need a bill that says that if you're in this country, you cannot get public funds. Period. No public funds. We have to get rid of sanctuary cities. We have to make them illegal. We have and unconstitutional, which they already are. We have to put down rules. See, this is the thing. I mean, it happened after in the 70s. I remember I was a kid. The Haitians were coming in. They took over Miami. They took over the football stadium in Miami. So we had the Haitians come in, and then we had who was the other ones? I can't remember. We had so many come in from other countries, and so Reagan. They tried to make a bill to make them legal. And, they fought about it back and forth in Congress, and it never happened. And every time they tried to do an immigration bill, it never passes because there's always a bunch of bullshit around it. I think, in my opinion, that we need to stop 10 years, no more immigration, period, from anywhere, none. For 10 years. The ones that are here that came through Biden have to, every single one, be vetted. And if they are criminals, they have to go. And they should not be allowed to bring a lawsuit. Should not. But we have to have a bill for that. Mamdani approval rating is lower than Adams was 100 days ago, and surprised he can't do free buses this year. I heard he walked home in protest. So is Virginia's governor. Her poll numbers are down. Trump's poll numbers are down. That's what I'm talking about. We don't pay attention. And we have an attention span of fucking gnat. We have to clear out the idiots in Congress and the Senate. Yeah, we do. It's time for term limits. But they're never going to do it. So we're going to have to do something about it. Listen, what we need to do, and I've said this already, if independent people run against the Republican and the Democrat, Congress, you bet your ass the independents are going to win. And then they're going to have to figure out who they're going to caucus with, right? In Congress. But maybe that should stop too. Maybe it's time for the parties to go. Maybe that will be, maybe they'll start being slates, kind of like Parliament. Who knows? We have to change what we're doing, because what we've been doing has gotten us into a lot of trouble. All right, I've gone way over. Thank you for letting me rant. Agree, you're the best, Leticia. Oh, thank you, sweetheart. If we get a Republican governor, will we do away with our sanctuary city, in your opinion? The sanctuary state is in now your Constitution, the New York Constitution. They adopted that in the Constitution. So you're going to have a constitutional convention and change it. And that's dangerous, because if you open that up, they can actually, well, they can't change gun rights, because the Supreme Court ruling changed that forever. Here's my plan. If they do, illegals cannot carry any kinds of weapons. They cannot put their hands on any American citizens, including children. Immediately, they get deported for any crime. Yes, you're right. But see, that's the whole thing. That's what it was back in the day. If you came to America, you had to have a sponsor. You had to have a job. You couldn't take tax dollars. If you were convicted of a crime, you were deported. You weren't put in our cozy jails. You were deported back to the country you came from. And if that country didn't take you, you were gone. Here's your money. Go. You got to go. And you were never to come back again. So, yeah, those things can happen in this bill. So Mike Lawler has the bill. Maybe tomorrow we'll talk about it. Tomorrow's Friday. Well, I might do Friday because I didn't do Sunday. We'll see. All right. Love you all. Read the Donroe, read all those doctrines. Remind yourself and look out for what's going on in South America. We need to stop it. Love you all. And I think I will see you tomorrow. Bye.